the Takoon Pump 90. It is one of the first pumpfoil specific boards that came out roughly 2 years ago, and in this video we're gonna see if it's still worth in 2025 to get a Takoon 90 Pump carbon. Alright, let's get into it. But you've seen it in the intro, so let's spend a few quick words on this lovely bag, because not many brands are actually delivering such a practical bag, especially for a board at this price point. And I do really like the board, and the cool thing is that if you get the aluminum mast, you can pretty much fit inside this bag the board, the mast, the base plate, the doodad, the fuselage, the screws, and the stab, right? So you have pretty much this bag and then the front wing, which is pretty handy, right? If you have to, walk the dog or whatever. So yeah, I believe it's nice for to offer this option, especially for a board at this price point. But yeah, that's for the bag. Now, this board, it is really a different concept, probably, compared to what we're used to, because suddenly it's a little longer, right? It's not like 80, 85, 90 centimeter long. It's a 93, I believe, slightly longer. And it has quite a pronounced rocker. And that's pretty much the topic of this video, to be honest, because is this rocker actually a problem when you're pumping in flat water, or is it useful in any shape or form? Well, I've got some experience with pumpfoiling and also experience with teaching beginners, and I have quite a controversial opinion when it comes to this rocker. First of all, in my opinion, there are really two ways of making pump boards, especially when it comes to the nose of the board, forward to the frontal part of the board. You either go very thin, so that you can cut through the water if you touch down. Either you implement a little bit of rocker, again, to not nosedive right away, right? So as you can see, this board is not the thinnest, but it has quite some rocker, all right? Now, do you feel this rocker when you pump? Not really, because you have long tracks, and unless you're using a super front-footed foil, like for example gong, you're never really gonna place your front foot in the forward part of the board, where the rocker is. The rocker starts roughly somewhere here, I would say, yeah. And this is pretty much where you're gonna have your front foot, especially if you place your mast all the way to the back. So you can actually decide whether to involve the rocker or not, simply by moving the mast further back or further forward, which is, a nice thing to have, because suddenly you can have like a hybrid board. You can have a board without the rocker and a board with the rocker at the same time, just by moving the mast. Because, yeah, to be honest, I explained this in other videos, but I don't really think that the mast position is that important, especially when it comes to pump foiling. Especially you don't have a rocker, right? If you have a completely flat board and it's like 90 centimeter or 80 centimeter, trust me, the mast position is not gonna make any difference, because you don't have foot straps, you don't have a specific volume on the nose that you have to use to flotate on the board, because anyways you're not floating, sorry. So people are overthinking the mast position, but anyways, let's keep talking about the board. Now, like I said, you shouldn't really worry too much about the rocker. However, it goes without saying that if you place the mast all the way to the back and your front was going to be somewhere around here, then for sure you're going to have quite some room in front that you don't really use. But the board is quite light, so you don't really feel the lag that you think you might have with a longboard. Now, when it comes to start, then this is pretty interesting, because if you are an intermediate and you are rock starting, beach starting, etc., in that case, I personally prefer a shorter board like an 80, simply because it allows you, first of all, to have less weight and also less touchdown likelihood, because the board is shorter, so you're less likely to touch down if your start is not super sharp. And you can also keep your hand on the nose like this, and that really helps with the beach shirt. However, having this extra length in front is not really gonna help you that much if you are drop starting, because there you really want something short, something compact, because it's simply easier and more predictable to throw, jump on it, land on it, glide, and go. However, if you are a beginner and you are learning the dog start, specifically the running start, then I believe that having a little bit more room in front is pretty helpful, because suddenly you require less flexibility. Because think about it, right? If you have little room on the board to place your hands on it, because we are always considering that you should always keep your hands on the board, right? And if you have more room, so if the board is slightly longer, then you can keep your hands further apart, and that gives you more room to fit your legs, your knees inside, in between your arms, right? And also, having a little bit of rocker allows you to have the front hand slightly higher than the backhand, because again, after teaching to so many beginners, I notice over and over that usually when people don't have a huge, great range of motion, flexibility, they can get the back foot up, but they struggle fitting the front foot on the board. And having a bit more room in front and a bit of a higher step here at the nose really allows you, gives you those 5-10 centimeters that seems nothing, but trust me, is really useful when you really can't fit your front foot on the pad. But yeah, having this nice rocker and a longer board gives you that good option. All right, that's why for complete beginners, for the normal dog starter, I don't mind a slightly longer board. All right, now they also did like this kind of shape at the bottom. As you can see, it's not perfectly flat, which I agree with, because I believe that you either make a nice what's it called, a nice with a bit of an angle, right, with like a what's it called? I forget the words. Anyways, either you do a little bit of like they did here. My English is not working today, bear with me. But that's because when you touch down, again, it's all about touching down, right? Because otherwise, why would you care about the bottom of a pump board? Now, when you touch down, if you have less surface touching the water, or if the surface is not perfectly flat, it helps you bounce back up. And also, having these thinner edges, as you can see, is exactly the size of your fingers, right? And that's on purpose, because by doing that, you can, it's easier to grab the board on the edges. I don't really like having thick boards when you are dog starting, especially when you are beach starting and rock starting. So it's a good option. It's a good thing they did here, having these thinner edges. Now, the pad. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a nice pad, right? It's very comfortable, especially again, if you're at the beginning and you're maybe falling on the board quite a bit. It is a nice pad and it grips well. However, personally, I prefer thinner pads. I'm used to no pad with my Ketos board. That's why whenever I use a board with a pad, especially with a thicker pad like this one, I would say it's about 4 millimeters, something like that. So it's very comfortable again. But again, the thick pad and the fact that the board is perfectly flat, I would say, doesn't really have any concave shape in this direction, really makes you lose a little bit of control. Now, if you're going for long distance, if you're a beginner and you're just starting out, you don't really care about having the best control when you're turning, when you're carving sharp. You don't really mind, you don't really care. You prefer comfort and safety, and this pad offers comfort and safety. But if you are looking for performance, precision, and extreme connection with the foil, then probably you're gonna lose some connection with this pad. At least that's what I felt. All right, so that is it. I think that I really covered everything. I like the finisher. Like I said, it's pretty light. Oh, I also like the fact that the edges here are quite smooth. And again, that's helpful not only when you're grabbing the board, but also again when you're a beginner, maybe you're falling on the board. My Ketos is a little bit sharper here at the edges. And especially if you have the version without pad, like the one that I have, you know, it's not super nice when you fall with your knees on that edge. So that's something you might consider as well if you are a complete beginner. All right. So that is it. This was my unfiltered, unbiased reviews on the Takoon Pump 90. It's a nice board. It's still a valuable option in 2025. If you are a complete beginner and or you wanna do some waves, because those 80 centimeter boards completely flat, then are probably not the best option if you are looking to wake thief. First of all, because this makes it a little easier to swim on it, because you have more room to lie on and more flotation, more volume. So it's better to swim on it. If, for example, you fall in the middle of the lake. And then having a bit of rocker, you know, when you're wave riding, the board is always pointing down, right? So having a little bit of rocker make sure that your feet are slightly more leveled. So I would say that this is like a hybrid board, like I said, because you can use it for flat water if you put your mast all the way to the back, or you can use it maybe for wake thieving if you put the mast all more towards the front, so that you actually engage the rocker part of the board, and you can you know, glide straight, seemingly straight, even when you are going down a hill, when you're riding a wave or a wake. All right. So, yeah, really, that's it. If you have any questions specifically regarding this board, drop them in the comment. If you want me to review a specific product from a specific brand, again, drop a comment, because you've already seen that I'm all about reviews and comparisons in the last period, so I really quite enjoy making them. So if you guys have something that you want me to review, drop it in the comment and I will try and put my hands on it. I know that this was kind of requested from some of you, so here it is. All right. Now, thank you very much for watching. I hope that this video was valuable, and I will see you in the next one.